Hello, my name is Thad McCracken, and this is your inaugural Psychoactive sermon, and the topic today is Occult Alien Contact, or Alien Contact and the Occult, if you will. And the reason I chose that topic is because I have a new book out, Galactic Dialogue, Occult Initiations. Make sure you pick up a copy. You can buy them digitally for only $3, so that's nice. And this book wouldn't exist if it were not for an alien contact, for lack of a better term, experience that I had in September of 2010. And so to set this up, at that point in my life I've been practicing a somewhat self-designed version of weed and sex-based chaos magic for about 4 years. And in the course of doing this, and I think anyone that gets into this kind of a deep spiritual practice will get to the point where almost a state of possession kicks in. You start to feel like you are an actor, that you're almost being controlled by something higher than yourself. And so I started engaging, for some reasons I didn't really understand on a conscious level, in a weird inner visualization exercise where I was envisioning myself wearing a black suit, and it was like a more idealized version of myself wearing a black suit. And this was like a character that I was kind of going into these weird fantasies. It was like the trans-dimensional part of me that exists outside of time. But moreover, if I had to put a theory as to why I was doing this, it would probably be my way of confronting what some would call your demonic side. And that's the part of you that wants to achieve things in the material world. Because what's been shown to me in other visions, and one thing that I talk about in this book is the dangers of binary thought patterns and humanity succumbing to these thought patterns, where if you look at our political process, it's just a flagrant example of how dangerous and stupid that could be. But in any spiritual practice, and particularly when you get into the occult, you have this division between angelic and demonic, and typical religions have pegged the demonic as evil, and of course the angelic as being good. And my experience with the occult is actually, it's been communicated to me as, basically in various states of ecstatic trance, that the angelic side is more higher dimensional, or of a higher realm, which I've seen in altered states of consciousness, and that the demonic side is more of this realm. So when I'm talking about the demonic, and so we view demonic as being more evil, and yet a better way to look at it would be more terrestrial, more of this world. When you watch, say, a football game, that's some pretty demonic shit. I would say the War Machine, pretty demonic. So we live in a very demonic society, and yet we demonize this side of ourselves because our religious has been programmed in this binary thought spiel, which is driving us all completely fucking insane. Again, I might say that I'm getting in touch with my demonic side, but, you know, again, it's just maybe the part of me that I wanted to have some sort of success in the material world. So anyways, that was my theory. So anyways, I'm envisioning myself in the suit for reasons I don't really understand. And then one day, I was super depressed at work. Just weird. I haven't been like that in a long time, and I came home and I went to bed at an ungodly early hour. And the reason I mentioned the depression is because if you read the book, there's one other segment where I talk about falling into one of these fugues, and it seemed to be associated again with the presence of some kind of spirit entity. It was like the presence of some sort of being is what caused this. And so this depressive fugue kind of sucked me into this state where I came home and I didn't want to take out how depressed I was on my wife. So I went to bed at like 7 o'clock at night. Just kind of alleviate the strain. And about 40 minutes after I did so, me in a black suit shows up in my room, and the first words that it telepathically imparted into my mind were, "We are the beings from the Sirius star system that were communicating with Robert Anton Wilson." And it continued, "We are the gray aliens. We are death." And then the kicker, we exist outside of time. That's why it's difficult for us to communicate with you. So it wasn't just that it said these words. And again, this was in a telepathic state of communication. It projected these words into my mind. And with it, I always talk about magic being the evolution of language towards telepathy. And it wasn't that it just said these words to me. It then communicated on a telepathic, visionary level, message about the Gnostic concept of the Holy Spirit. Now, again, I grew up a Christian, so I remember saying the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit over and over again in various prayers. And you say this over and over again, and so many millions of people repeat this stuff daily without really thinking that there might be a broader spiritual significance to this. And what this telepathic psychogram, or whatever you want to call it, that was projected into my spirit was showing me is that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are actually a representation for, in a way, why basic sigil projection magic works, but also just a very interesting structure of the human soul. And let me explain. So the Father, or the me in a black suit character in this instance, was outside of the time stream. And the time stream was presented as a glowing orb. The best in later years, as I've thought about it more, I've described it as a developing star. And when I think about it, that really seems about as apt as I can think. And then the sun was enmeshed in this star, and it was just a teeny little blip, a teeny little character in this enormous, burgeoning celestial object. So that's the sun, and then the Holy Spirit is the object itself. It is all the plot lines in human history tied together. Now, a funny thing on that front is that later, a couple of years after that, actually, right after disinfo.com started picking up my writing, I think one of the second things I wrote was a piece called They Told Me to Write This. And what happened with that is I was, contemplating what I should write for disinfo.com, and this globular amoeba-like character showed up in a kind of hypnagogic state, and it put a tentacle into my brain, like a amorphous tentacle that penetrated my mind and sent me into a wave of complete, calm. And then it showed me again this vision of this developing star that's being monitored by the fifth dimensional Father or Mother in the Holy Trinity. And it explained to me that from their perspective, all time is happening at once. So all of human history looks like one object, and the best metaphor that I could give to explain that would be like a movie or a book. To us, those things seem like one singular object. Like if you bought my book, it seems like one thing, and you can flip forward and backwards. So I don't know a better way to explain it than from their perspective, it's like that, and they can go in and change, like the book isn't finished, I guess, or something like that. If it ever is, or if it ever solidifies, which I'm not sure that it does. But that's what they were showing me. So now back to this whole transmission and the we are death part. The we are gray aliens is obvious. Like again, I wouldn't necessarily put a communication like this in the realm of alien contact unless it wasn't mentioned to me specifically. And it's been repeatedly shown to me throughout the years that there is something to do with the alien phenomenon. Like what I'm experiencing and alien phenomenon are somehow related. And of course, alien phenomenon isn't going away. This is still something about human history and human psychology that we haven't resolved. To give a little more details on the death aspect of this, because the second thing it said was, we are death. And the thing about that is, I had for most of my life felt the presence of, especially after I got into, doing more psychedelic drugs and auditory kind of shamanism in my early 20s, I had, just sensed the presence of like a death, almost like a Grim Reaper kind of spirit protector entity. And shortly after this transmission happened, like a few days later, I had this dream where I was trying to run away from this death-like entity. It was me and somebody else. And I was trying to escape it. And in the dream, which this is hilarious, the death entity was Hurley from Lost. The character Hurley from Lost, just ridiculous. So it's chasing me, and we can't get away from it. And we're trying everything we can, and we can't. And we finally think we lose it just to go to a restaurant, and it's sitting in the restaurant waiting for us there, like, and just finishing up its meal and talking to the proprietor of the restaurant. As it was one step ahead of us the entire time. That's essentially the point of this. And so I get pissed off. I go to try and run from it again, and I get pissed off, and I go in and confront it, Hurley. And I say, hey, motherfucker, if you want to kill me, why don't you just kill me? What's the point with the charade? I get it. You're one step ahead of me. I can't beat you. Why don't you just kill me? So it gets up, and it's towering above me. It's way bigger than me, and it sticks, almost like the tentacle thing I was talking a second ago. It sticks its hand on my neck. And when it does, it goes into a vision of a potential future, which I'm not going to actually talk about right now, but an exquisite kind of interesting potential future. And then it pulls me out of it, and then it says, I can't kill you. I can't kill you because of that. Basically, essentially saying that, and this is weird, because if you read my book too, in my 20s, it was almost like there was a process that I was slowly trying to kill myself through partying. And I think, I don't know, this is probably something a lot of people experience, but it was like I was reincarnated back here and I didn't want to be back here, so I was trying to get the fuck out by recklessly partying. And I've been kind of shown this in my psychic life before, that there was some kind of protector entity there every time I took things too far that just kind of stepped in and made sure that didn't happen. Again, the occult, the concept of the holy guardian angel. The guardian angel has been something that's been written about so much in so many different forms of visionary literature. So that's that. So anyways, enough of my vision. What's funny about this, again, in the first part, is we are the beings from the Sirius star system that we're communicating with Robert Anton Wilson. So of course, because that was such a specific thing to say, and to reference Robert Anton Wilson, after I was done writing this book, I went back and I reread Cosmic Trigger, because that's the book where he talks about being in communication with the beings from the Sirius star system. And there were several aspects of it that were just sent shivers down my spine. One being that, again, he talks about how he was doing the sex magic and how it's been recorded throughout history. Of course, Crowley being the one who passed these techniques, through various places into the West, largely most successfully so. But there's all these people that have had a history of doing this and reporting the same thing, that beings will show up and teach you something about the nature of time. Like, I'd even forgotten that he mentioned that this lesson is supposed to be about the nature of time until I'm reading the book again. There's even a quote about the Enochian, and we forget, on my book I put the cover, right on the cover, have we always shared our minds with beings that remain invisible to us? And I did that because on the cover of Cosmic Trigger, he says, have we always shared our world with beings that remain invisible to us? It was, in fact, a book which I think it's being revived, and some people are sort of overlooking that aspect of it, which is what I find the most compelling, about this question of repeatability, of can you do sex magic, and will you have some kind of occult alien contact encounter experience, and I'm just another person saying, yes, I did this, and this kind of thing, it happened. I just told you about it. It's fucking insane. But what's insane about it is it's not that crazy. Nobody could tell me that the human soul isn't structured in the exact manner that they were talking about. Maybe this is a very interesting new model or way of looking at it from a more perspective of trans-dimensional psychology, if you want to look in a more academic sense. And now, what's even more interesting about this is I accidentally released this book on the 20th anniversary of The Invisibles starting. The first volume of The Invisibles came out in September of 1994. This came out in September of 2014. So total accident. I wasn't trying to do that. I noticed it a few weeks before it was coming out. And what's more bizarre about that is, of course, disinfo.com picked up my writing. And Grant Morrison gave a speech at disinfo.com back in 2000 about just that. About, was Robert Anton Wilson talking crap? Can you do sex magic? The fuckers will turn up. And what he was urging was for people to replicate this experience. And I didn't even see that speech at the time, and I'd actually been into magic for a while before I saw that speech. But it's particularly bizarre that 14 years later, after that happens, I'm writing for disinfo.com and giving a speech on the fact that, yes, I did do this, and it did work. So now you have Crowley, you have Robert Anton Wilson, you have Grant Morrison, and you have me, all saying that, yes, this will work. So it's down to you. Can you do this? If you want to experiment with techniques that I would recommend, go Google search contacting extra-dimensional forms of intelligence through sex magic, and you could write in disinfo on that. It's a brief tutorial I wrote up just for that sort of purpose, and so that's it. It's down to you. This is now a bunch of people that replicate it, and the ones I just mentioned, the 4 of people, including myself, that I just mentioned, I would also point out that I've read several other people online that have said, similar stuff. And of course, there's means of having these contact experiences through other means, like DMT and whatnot. But there is something particularly strange about weed-based sex magic now that has caused UFO contacts. And maybe if the UFOs aren't going away, I got news for you. This whole UFO thing, alien contact that Whitley Strieber and John Mack wrote about, it's not going away. So maybe the best way that we can think about this or attack this or try and find some kind of understanding is to get more people to have the balls, which I didn't really have, and I was kind of pushed into this direction by the universe, but to get more people to have the balls to experiment with this, these kind of occult techniques, especially now that they're legal in places like Seattle, where I live, and let's push the envelope forward. Humanity has a lot of problems facing it. It's not time to be timid. This is stuff that is very non-consumerist, very cheap, very easy way to get your kicks that doesn't ruin the environment. And so, you know what? Get out there, kids. This has probably gone on longer than you like already, but I'll hit you back next time.